15 minutes. That's all the time it took us to go from a completely blank canvas to a poster that looked like it came out of a high-end design agency. No design degree. No expensive software subscription stack. Just a laptop, a cup of coffee, and a handful of AI tools that most people have never even heard of. If you've ever stared at an empty canvas wondering how on earth professional designers make it look so effortless, stick around. Because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to replicate that process yourself, step by step, in real time. Here's the thing nobody tells you about poster design. The hardest part isn't the execution. It's not knowing how to use the tools or which button does what. The hardest part is the blank canvas itself. That moment of staring at an empty white rectangle, cursor blinking, with absolutely no idea where to start. We've all been there. You open your design software, you have a vague idea of what you want, maybe a product launch poster, an event flyer, a movie-style promotional piece, and then nothing. The ideas just won't translate from your head onto the screen. That's exactly the problem we set out to solve, and what we discovered changed the way we approach every single design project now. We're going to walk you through the entire process we use to take a poster from absolutely nothing to a polished professional, scroll-stopping design in 15 minutes flat, and stick with us until the end. Because the final step is the one that actually makes the difference between a poster that looks okay and one that looks like it belongs on a billboard. Let's get into it. The concept. Before any tool gets opened, every great poster starts with a concept. We can't stress this enough. AI tools are incredibly powerful, but they're not mind readers. The clearer your concept, the better your results will be, and the faster you'll move through the entire process. For our test run, we decided on a concept for a fictional summer music festival poster. Why a music festival poster? Because it requires nearly everything a poster design needs to demonstrate. Bold typography, vibrant color combinations, atmospheric imagery, and a layout that guides the eye exactly where it needs to go. If you can nail a music festival poster, you can nail pretty much any poster. We spent the first 60 seconds jotting down 3 things. The mood we wanted, which was energetic, warm, golden hour vibes. The key information that needed to be on the poster, which was the event name, date, location, and headline artists, and the general feel we were going for, somewhere between retro 70s festival posters and modern minimalist design. That's it. 60 seconds of planning saves you from 20 minutes of aimless wandering later. Generating the core visual. With our concept locked in, it was time to generate our base imagery, and this is where AI image generation tools completely transform the workflow. We turned to an AI image generator and typed out a detailed prompt describing our golden hour festival scene. Within seconds, we had several variations to choose from, each one capturing a slightly different mood and composition. Here's a tip that took us way too long to figure out on our own. Don't just accept the first image you get. Generate multiple variations, even if you think the first one looks great. We generated 6 different versions of our festival scene, and the one we ultimately chose wasn't even our first instinct. It was the 4th variation, which had a slightly different camera angle that left more negative space at the top. Perfect for our headline text later. This is honestly one of the biggest mindset shifts when working with AI tools for design. You're not just generating one image and hoping it works. You're curating from a selection, almost like a creative director reviewing options from a photo shoot. That curatorial mindset is what separates amateur results from professional ones, and it costs you nothing extra, just a few more seconds of generation time. Once we had our base image, we noticed it was slightly lower resolution than we needed for a poster that might eventually get printed. So we ran it through an AI upscaling tool, which increased the resolution significantly while preserving all the fine detail and texture. What started as a decent web quality image became something genuinely print-ready with crisp detail in the clouds, the stage lighting, and the silhouettes of the crowd. Choosing our color story. Now here's where a lot of people get stuck, and honestly, it's where we used to get stuck too. You have your base image. It looks good, but now you need to build a color palette around it that works for your text, your accents, and your overall branding. Eyeballing this is risky. What looks good to your eye in the moment might clash terribly once you add text and other elements. This is where an AI-powered color palette generator became absolutely essential. We uploaded our festival image directly into the tool, and it analyzed the dominant tones, the warm golds, the deep purples in the shadows, the hints of orange in the sky, and generated a series of complementary palettes based on those exact colors. What made this genuinely useful, rather than just a nice feature, was the ability to see these palettes applied directly onto our image in real time. We could preview how a deep navy text color would look against our golden sky versus a cream color versus a bold red. Within about 2 minutes, we landed on a palette of 4 colors. A warm gold pulled directly from the sunset, a deep plum for contrast text, a cream off-white for secondary information, and a small pop of coral for accent details like the date. Having this palette locked in early saved us enormous amounts of back and forth later. Every single design decision from this point forward, every text color, every shape, every accent line, came directly from these 4 colors. That consistency is honestly the secret ingredient behind why professional posters feel so cohesive. It's not magic, it's just color discipline, and AI tools make achieving that discipline almost effortless. Typography that actually works. Alright, so now we have a stunning base image and a locked-in color palette. This is the point where most people make their biggest mistake. They open up a font menu, scroll through hundreds of options, and just pick whatever looks cool in isolation. The problem is that fonts don't exist in isolation. They exist in pairs, sometimes trios, and the relationship between fonts matters just as much as the fonts themselves. We turned to an AI-powered font pairing tool that analyzes typefaces based on their style, weight, and contrast characteristics, then suggests combinations that actually work together visually. We were looking for something with a bold, retro display font for our headline, Summer Sounds Festival, paired with a clean, modern sans serif for the supporting details like the date, location, and artist lineup. The tool gave us several pairings instantly, and what struck us was how each pairing felt like it told a different story. One combination felt very modern and tech-forward. Another felt vintage and nostalgic. We went with a pairing that had a chunky, rounded display font for the headline, which echoed that 70s festival feel we wanted, paired with a clean geometric sans serif for the details, providing legibility and contrast. The real value here wasn't just getting a recommendation, it was being able to fine-tune the weight and spacing of each font in relation to the other. We adjusted the letter spacing on our headline to give it more presence, and tightened up the supporting text so it felt organized and intentional rather than like an afterthought. This kind of micro-adjustment is exactly what separates a poster that looks homemade from one that looks designed. Now, before we move on to layout and final touches, this is the perfect moment to mention something important. If you've been following along and you're starting to see how these tools fit together into an actual workflow, that's exactly what we want. But knowing the tools is only half the battle. The other half is practice. So here's a simple call to action for you. Open up whichever design tool you have available right now, even if it's just a basic one, and start a new blank canvas. Don't wait until you've watched the whole video. Start now, follow along in real time, and by the time we finish, you'll have an actual poster, not just notes in your head. Pause if you need to, but get that canvas open. Building the layout. With our visual, our color palette, and our typography all decided, the layout itself came together remarkably fast. This is honestly the part that surprised us most. We always assumed layout would be the most time-consuming step, but when every other element has already been decided with intention, the layout almost arranges itself. We started with the golden ratio in mind, a classic design principle, and placed our headline text in the upper third of the poster. Taking advantage of that negative space we specifically chose our image for back in step 1. Remember how we said the 4th image variation had more open sky at the top? This is exactly why that mattered. Good layout decisions are made way earlier in the process than most people realize. Below the headline, We created a horizontal divider line using our coral accent color, a small but effective detail that helps separate the headline from the supporting information without adding visual clutter. Underneath that, we arranged the date, location, and artist lineup in a clean, organized block using our secondary sans serif font, with the most important information, the date, given slightly more visual weight than the rest. We used an AI design tool that let us simply describe adjustments in plain language. Things like make the headline larger and shift it slightly left, or add more breathing room between the date and the artist names. Instead of manually dragging elements around and eyeballing measurements, we described what we wanted and the tool handled the precise execution. This conversational approach to layout adjustments is genuinely one of the most underrated AI design features out there, because it removes the technical friction between your creative vision and the actual execution, the details that make it feel premium. Here's where things get really interesting, because this is the stage that most tutorials skip entirely, and it's the stage that makes the single biggest difference in perceived quality. We're talking about the small details. The subtle shadow under the headline text that makes it feel like it's floating slightly above the image. The faint grain texture overlay that gives the whole poster a tactile printed feel rather than looking flat and digital. The tiny accent shapes, little sun rays radiating from behind our headline that tie the typography into the imagery rather than having them feel like two separate layers stacked on top of each other. We used a generative recolor feature to experiment with different shadow and glow effects behind our text, testing several options until we found one that added depth without overwhelming the image. We also added a subtle vignette around the edges of the poster, darkening the corners just slightly, which naturally draws the eye toward the center where our headline lives. One detail we almost skipped, but I'm so glad we didn't, was adding a thin border frame around the entire poster in our cream color. It sounds like such a small thing, but it instantly gave the whole design a sense of intentionality, like it was designed within specific boundaries rather than just existing as a random rectangle of content. These tiny touches, individually, might each seem insignificant, but stacked together, they're the difference between a poster that looks like a template and one that looks like it was crafted specifically for this event. The final polish and export. With everything in place, we did one final pass over the entire poster, checking for consistency. Were all our colors pulled from the same palette? Yes. Was our typography hierarchy clear, with the headline obviously more prominent than the supporting details? Yes. Did the image quality hold up at full size without any pixelation or blurriness, thanks to that early upscaling step? Absolutely yes. We ran the final image through an enhancement tool one more time, just to make sure everything was crisp and vibrant before export. This step is especially important if your poster might end up being printed at a larger size, because what looks fine on a screen can sometimes reveal quality issues once it's blown up to poster dimensions. For export, we made sure to save our poster in multiple formats: a high-resolution PNG for digital sharing on social media, and a print-ready format for anyone who might want physical copies for venues or promotional distribution. Having both versions ready from the start means you're not scrambling later when someone asks for a specific format. Stepping back and looking at the result, and there it was. 15 minutes, start to finish, and what began as a blank canvas was now a fully realized, professional-looking festival poster. Vibrant golden hour imagery, a cohesive color story running through every element, typography that felt intentional and well-paired, a layout that guided the eye naturally from headline to details, and those small finishing touches that gave it a genuinely premium feel. Looking back at the whole process, what struck us most wasn't just the speed, although 15 minutes is genuinely remarkable when you think about how long this used to take. What struck us was how each step built naturally on the one before it. The image informed the color palette. The color palette informed the typography choices. The typography informed the layout. And the layout created space for those final premium details. Nothing felt random or disconnected. Every decision flowed logically from the last, and that's really the secret behind why this process works so well. If there's one thing we want you to take away from this, it's that great poster design isn't about having years of formal training or mastering complicated software. It's about having a clear process and AI tools that remove the technical barriers between your ideas and the final result. The creativity is still entirely yours. The concept, the mood, the story you're telling, that all comes from you. These tools simply clear away the obstacles that used to stand between that creative vision and a finished professional design. So here's what we want you to do right now. If you started that blank canvas earlier like we suggested, you're already ahead. Don't stop there. Pick a different concept entirely, maybe a poster for your own event, your business, or just something fun, and run through this exact same process again. The first time, you're following along. The second time, you're actually building the skill. Repetition is what turns a one-time experiment into a tool you genuinely own. And if you found this walkthrough helpful, we genuinely love to hear about your results. Drop a comment below telling us what kind of poster you created, what tools you used, and what surprised you most about the process. Did the color palette step change how you think about design? Did the typography pairing save you from a font combination disaster? We read every comment, and seeing your posters is honestly one of our favorite parts of making these videos. One last thing before you go. If this 15-minute process just changed how you think about design entirely, imagine what's possible when you start combining these tools in even more creative ways. Layering techniques, mixing multiple AI generators for composite images, building entire brand systems instead of just single posters. That's territory we're planning to explore in upcoming videos, so if you don't want to miss it, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join us next time as we keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible when creativity meets AI. Until then, go open that canvas. Your poster is waiting.